In today's tutorial, we're all about that summer illustration. We'll use watercolor and pen and ink to make a fun doodle of all of our summer favorites. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back. My name's Shayda Campbell. So I love summer. I'm a good Canadian. I very much appreciate my warm weather, and I just love summer for all the little things. The popsicles, banana and rocket, those are my favorites. Wildflower picking, berry picking, beach days, the long evenings. And so today that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna document all of the summer favorites in a whimsical watercolor piece. So let's get started. And I just wanted to mention that my summer illustration will be available as a coloring page over on my Patreon. All the channel bonus content is there, and it's only $2 a month. All right, let's talk supplies. I'm using some Canson cold pressed watercolor paper, as well as my Koi watercolor disc set from Sakura, a number 6 nylon round brush. And I'm gonna start just basically laying down some color. I've got all my sketches sort of just lightly laid out on the page, so I've done some doodles, and we'll talk about how to draw some of these items later in the video. But I want to talk about just kind of using the watercolor paints as a way to just add a little bit of color. And this is perfect for the absolute beginner. You don't need to be really proficient in watercolors to open up a set of watercolor discs from the craft store, from the dollar store, and just sort of mix a little water in and just start laying down color on the page. You just want to mix lots of water in, as I just said, and then get those colors onto your page and just lay them down lightly. Maybe you add a bit more, and that's when you're doing that wet in wet, when you're sort of going back in with more color and letting the pigment flow out into the wet area. That's what I'm doing here with the blue. But you're not gonna overthink it too much. You're just laying down these nice, simple, translucent colors, and you're just wanting to basically color in your doodle, almost like a coloring page. And you can see here, I'm doing some shoes and these cute little espadrilles, and I'm just filling them in with a wash of pink. Now for my bathing suit, I'm using a very simple blue, and I'm doing these whimsical stripes, very, very perfectly imperfect. I'm not being too exact about this. Another thing I want to talk about is choosing a color palette, and this is something we go back to again and again that I mentioned on the channel. So choosing a color palette for any piece that you're creating, even if it's just sort of a journal doodle or something fun like this, is so important. It really elevates your piece. So the color palette that I chose was inspired by the rocket popsicle that you can see I've already painted. So I'm thinking sort of this magenta, cherry red, and blue, and that's where my color palette starts. From there, I decided I would also add a lighter pink and a mintier bluish green. And then of course I have some brown, sort of the same color as the popsicle stick. And I'm gonna stick with those colors. I also ended up adding gray and black, but the color palette, I kept it quite simple. And that just helps me create a sophisticated, cohesive piece that's sort of a little more well-designed than something that just doesn't have really any thought that's gone into it. So here on the shells, I'm adding this purpley gray, and don't worry, we're gonna talk about how to draw some of these items. But basically, I've got my cherry red, blue, white and black, a little bit of this purple gray, and then later on you're gonna see I'm gonna add this minty blue or minty green, but very simple pared down color palette. When I'm painting the shells, I'm leaving lots of negative space, so lots of white space. You'll notice as well when I'm painting, I'm leaving highlights. So everything from the sunglasses lenses to the popsicle, they all have some negative space there, just a little white space. That highlight can really bring your doodles to life. So try to think about that when you're painting. And you're the artist, you can put the highlight anywhere. It's not, oh, well, where do I place it? Oh, just put it on the right-hand side of everything or on the left-hand side of everything. You pick where your imaginary light source is coming from, right? Okay, so what else are we gonna do on this piece? As the piece slowly begins to dry, I'm adding a little bit of shading. So you can see there on the rocket popsicle, I added a little bit of shading where the indents in the popsicle are. Now I'm adding a bit of that minty blue-green that I was talking about, and that's sort of the final color in my color palette. And again, as the piece begins to dry, we can go back in and add more detail. So I'm turning the sunglasses into more of a tortoiseshell look. So with my watercolors, sometimes I'm doing a wet into wet where I'm letting the color seep out into the wetness on the page. Other times I'm waiting for things to dry and going back in and doing a little wet on dry, adding more details on top of the dry paint. But overall, what I'm trying to do here is just not overthink it. I'm using my watercolors like I'd use crayons. I just want to use them to add a bit of color to each item. We're not doing tons of shading or tons of detail. We're doing a little, but not a lot. And I think that's what helps create a piece that's really fun and doesn't look like it was overthought. Here I'm doing this cute little Bruna bag, my beautiful straw bag that I've been carrying around, my new favorite purse, and I'm just doing a bit of wet into wet to show the wicker element or the woven element of it. And then here you can see I'm doing a wet on dry where I've waited for the pink of the shoe to dry, and then I'm going to go in and add more detail. And same thing on the earrings, waited for them to dry and then added more detail. And on my bag, again, now that it's dry, you guessed it, I can add some more detail. So really when you treat watercolors like this and you don't overthink them too much and you're almost creating a coloring page or you're creating a large doodle, it's really fun and it's a great way to get to know your watercolors as well. Last thing I'm adding here is of course the northeastern rose, which grows where I live, which is in Prince Edward Island. So these wildflowers are popping up everywhere right now, and they illustrate another point, which is my color palette. You can see here I've got the magenta, I've got the blue-gray, I've got the brown, and it all stems from that rocket popsicle. So now I have an issue. I have a rose which has green leaves and a yellow center. So instead of doing green and yellow, which are not part of my color palette, I'm going to use the brown of the popsicle stick and the tortoiseshell glasses. I'll use that in the center instead of yellow, and instead of green for the leaves, I'll use the minty blue. So I'm just being flexible and I'm picking the two closest colors that are in my color palette. I also consider doing the leaves the purpley gray. You know, it's my painting, I can do what I want, but that's just sort of the decision that you can make as the illustrator. And I think making those decisions will help elevate your piece. And basically I'm all done the watercolor element. I've let it dry completely, and now I'm going to go in with a pen, and instead of using a black pen today, I am using a gray pen, just something lighter for summer, and this is the Staedtler Triplus Fine Liner. Now I've outlined my shell. I have a whole video about drawing sea creatures and stuff, so I'll link that below, but the shells are a lot of fun to draw. For the earrings, tassels are big this spring. You just start with 2 circles, give a little border, and then just draw some simple lines below, so very, very simple shape. For the rocket popsicle, it's a little more tricky, but not difficult. You just want to create that sort of oblong shape, and then it's very important to create those indents in the bottom and give it these 4 sort of lines that come to a scalloped edge along the bottom there, and that's really what allows it to look like that iconic rocket popsicle. For the bathing suit, I recommend whatever suit you're gonna do, just look at images of bathing suits online, and it's fun to draw it almost as if someone was wearing it. So here I'm creating the sort of silhouette of a woman with hips, and that really helps me to create an image that people can tell, oh, that is a bathing suit. But I had a lot of fun going around doing some online shopping, and I actually drew a suit that I would like to purchase, so that was kind of fun. Now for the other shell, you want to draw a semicircle in pencil and then draw a scalloped edge over top of that semicircle, and then you make it come to a triangular point at the bottom with 2 other little triangles along the side. Again, these Essie nail polishes are really simple to draw. It's basically just a square with then that rectangular top, so very, very simple shapes, but because you get to put in your favorite color, it makes it a fun thing to draw and design. My trick for the watermelon is to always draw the fruit or the flesh and the skin as 2 separate items. So the skin of the watermelon or the rind is one whole shape, and then the fruit is another whole shape unto itself, and that just gives it a nice design element. The shoes, again, I was looking online, what do I want to purchase this summer? Shoes can be a little tricky to draw. The trick is to get them at the right angle and just play around and sketch until you get them looking the way you like. This is, as I said, my new purse for the summer. This is from Bruna. I'll link this in the description below. I've been taking it everywhere and I've gotten so many compliments on it. It's this sweet little woven purse. It has just the right amount of beachy, whimsical detail, and I'm just drawing it. It's this hexagon shape, adding some simple cross hatching to represent the weave, and it's so simple. I think adding that pen line to this rather simple, whimsical illustration, it really helps bring it all together at the end. And by adding that sketchy, illustrative line, you can really save anything. If all you've laid down for a flower is this big blob of pink paint, that's okay. That's how you learn. That's how you get comfortable with watercolor. And now if you're a little more comfortable with pen or sketching or doodling, you can go in and sort of, lift up, elevate this watercolor piece. And I'm just saying that for you, if you're not comfortable with watercolor, as I once wasn't, that was sort of my trick, the sketchy black line. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I always love doing these illustrative tutorials, and especially the summer ones because I do love summer. I hope you like my Rocket Popsicle color palette. Please head over to Patreon if you're interested in supporting the channel. All the bonus content is available for $2 a month, stuff like coloring pages and clip art and all kinds of goodies. And I will see you guys next week with a new tutorial. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.